Just a bit about myself. I've over 10 years working with medium to large organisations to change culture. Have debriefed, I think it's somewhere over 700 strengths assessments now, and including organisations like South Australia Power Networks, Saunders, RCR, and a range of other ones there. My top 5 strengths I'd love to share with you now, and I'd love for you to share yours in the chat as well. So I'd love to know what yours are. Relator, futuristic, individualization, communication, and responsibility. And my joke is that these are the best 5 to have, but of course I do love all 34. So if you can, please share in the chat your top 5 as well. Now, for those that aren't fully aware of why we should focus on strengths, I'd like to make an assumption that all of you on board are in the webinar. But just to share some of the research from Gallup, people who get to apply their dominant strengths, their top 5 strengths, day in, day out, 3 times likely to report having an excellent quality of life and 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. And a strengths-based approach is the key way to increase employee engagement. Combine that with a relationship with the manager, which Gallup has also identified, and in focusing on employees' well-being. And if you're at the Strengths Summit earlier this year in Omaha, which I was there and had a great time connecting with so many strengths champions and coaches, a quote from Jim Clifton stood out to me, which was, actively disengaged employees cost organizations on average 4.3K per 10K of their annual salary. So if we think about that and the impact on business and how valuable and how important focusing on strengths are, if we can turn that around, not just from the quality of life of our employees, but the impact on business and in faith-based organizations and in schools and education, what could that look like? So how do I keep strengths alive in my organization is a question I've had quite a lot, and also in different culture change initiatives I've had that question as well. And the question has often been, how do I do this? How do I keep it alive? What do I do? And I guess what I want to share with you today is some tips and insights which I know have worked with me, and then I want to talk to you about the Strengths Culture Toolkit that I have put together earlier this year. Quite often, with good intent, what we do in business and in so many initiatives, we set up the training and coaching. We have an environment for that. Yet people might go away and they experience that. It might be on site or somewhere off, and it's like, I'm actually not feeling a difference in what I've experienced in that training environment. For training, and when I say training, it could be a strengths-based workshop, it may be a small event, it could be something quite large. A coaching, maybe 1 or many sessions. To put all that together, what we really need is actually think about, what's the organization culture? What does it look like? What does it feel like when that person's back in their day-to-day role, whatever that may be, from a senior leader all the way down to one of our team members? So we need to think about how, from an organization perspective, we're making it easy for them to transfer what they've learnt in that training environment back into the organization. One of my mentors many years ago, he actually said to me, he's seen teams that come back and be even more disengaged because they have felt and experienced what could be, what was actually possible, and yet they've come back into an organization with no change, which has made it very difficult for them. So we need to think about that and how we set that. And that's one of the key things for this cultural change to really stick. The other part, of course, is what's the attitudes of our individuals that are attending training or coaching. I know in my career, I've had people, whether that's peers or myself, get a message from a leader or from HR that says, hey, you're off to training tomorrow. Or even in the morning on the same day. I've unfortunately had that in some of my workshops. So if we're doing that with people, we're not setting them up again from a perspective of really wanting to embrace and be open and to support the cultural change of embedding strengths. So how we set people up for success in attending any of these events is so important. And that's where I really want to stress what I like to think of is a 5 or 10 minute conversation that all leaders have with their team members before training and after, to really concentrate on what is it you want to know, what would you like to get out of this training, and how can I help you embed your strengths, apply your strengths, and give you opportunities to do what you do best every day. Those simple conversations before and after speak volumes of how you care about the development of your team members. And once you deliver on that, it'll then create that culture of strengths-based. So what is culture? It's a conversation that we could have for the rest of the day, but I'd like to just share with you a few definitions I've heard. And ones that I've heard are around a collection of values which might define our company, our attitudes and behaviors that we display and that we apply day in, day out. I've also heard what we do and say and allow others to do and say. I think, to wrap it all up, what culture really is it's just the way we do things around here. And from a strengths point of view, how is strengths just part of the way we do things day in, day out around here? Now, there's a few areas we're going to cover around the culture framework, but the key thing to think about is our leaders provide such an important role in driving our culture change. So we need to invest in these 4 areas you'll see on the screen, which I'll cover in a minute. However, what I want you to consider is, more than any other single factor, leadership sets the culture of an organization. And this is leaders at all levels, how they talk about strengths, how they do that, how that we actually apply that. Now on the call today, I know we've got some HR or OD professionals, but also a lot of coaches. And I'm actually a coach consultant that I work with a lot of organizations, previously in HR myself. For those coaches on board today, what I want you to think about how you are interacting and actually building those relationships with your clients to get them to engage with their leaders to drive the culture change. How you are engaging the leaders in your clients. So I want you to think about, if you think about the clients you're trying to build a strengths-based culture with, I want you to reflect on, are the leaders really invested in developing a strengths-based culture? Which ones are and which ones aren't as much? And what conversations could you have with them for them to understand the benefits of focusing on strengths? And also, I want you to think about how you approach the leaders through their strengths. For example, if you have a leader within your organization or one of your clients which is high in analytical, what's the data which is going to help them really think about the benefits of strengths? If they're high in relationship domain and they're high in many of those themes in that section, how can you actually talk about the benefits going to have to relationships in the organization as well? What I think leaders need to help them do this is the why of the strengths. Why are we doing this? How is it going to help us? And as I just said, linking to their strengths. Give them some information, some supporting documentation, some sort of, I guess, guidelines to help them communicate the benefits of strengths to their teams. Give it time. What I think is really important is the belief and I guess the understanding that culture change doesn't just happen overnight, that it does take a bit of time. What I want you to also think about in these conversations is how you leverage your own strengths, how you apply them in the conversations in the way you work with your clients or your internal customers if you're within an organization. I know a lot on board today in the webinar, we have a lot of people high in responsibility and strategic. And I know that responsibility is my number 5 strength. And for me, that's very much about I'm driven to serve others. So when you think about how you can then serve others through these conversations. Strategic for me is number 6. So I want you to think about what's the plan forward, how you can partner with those internal customers or your clients around that path forward in the culture change using your strategic strength. We really need people and leaders to believe in the impact of a strengths focus. And this might look like some targeted one-on-one conversations, those coffee catch-ups about that I guess, that challenge of why strengths and getting them on board as well. As I said earlier, engage them through their strengths. And to wrap that up, some research from Gallup a few years ago, managers account for 70% of the variance in employee engagement. We talked about engagement earlier, and this is very much linking back to, if we're focusing on strengths and managers are believing in it, we're going to improve that employee engagement. Now, the 4 areas of culture that I want us to consider are the leadership, the individual, the systems, and environment. While we want to focus on leadership, these other 3 areas are also going to help us develop the strengths culture. Now, I don't want to overwhelm you, but what I want to show you on this slide is there's a whole range of ways we can do this. So in the environment, it's the physical workplace environment, a whole range of things there that we can do to help us build the culture. From a systems point of view, we've got all these systems that we currently have. How do we leverage those? How do we integrate strengths into them? Whether it's our HR systems, our training systems, other development, whatever it might be, by integrating the strengths language, the references into all of those, it's getting into that place of strength is just the way we do things around here. Had a great conversation with one of my clients recently about how they're conducting their performance reviews. And I know there's lots of conversations about the value of them, how often we do them, do we not? And just integrating some of those simple questions around, for when we do have those conversations, are you getting the chance to apply your strengths every day? If we changed your role and you got to apply your strengths more often, what would that look like? How can I create a culture where you get to be your best every day? And those questions can be gold for an employee and for a leader to understand that. Now, for coaches who have ran workshops or coaching, these initiatives will help you build that relationship with your client and really serve them to help embed the strengths, but also strengthen your relationship with your clients as well. Now, from a leadership perspective, we talked about the importance of leaders earlier. There's a list of things there that can very much help embed the strengths. What I really want to think about is it's that strengths-based targeted conversations that leaders have and how they talk to their people. I had another client recently and they've completed their strengths in this team. They had their strengths team map, or their team grid, sorry. And he just pushed it across the table to me. He said, "Now, Murray, can you tell me what job my team should be doing based on their strengths?" And I looked at him and I said, "You know what, that's actually not my role. I'm here to help you understand their strengths, but now this is part of your role as a leader to have those conversations. Knowing your team's strengths doesn't negate your role as a leader." And he looked at me, he said, "Well, tell me more." And I said, "Now you know these strengths in your people, have some conversations, talk to them about the work they do, and use these strengths for those conversations." I think he was a little bit disappointed because he wanted me just to be able to say, assign this work to different people. But really, I think it comes back to it gave him a tool, gave him a resource to really tap into his team to help them be their best. And from an individual perspective, we want to really create a culture where individuals are engaged and have an attitude of the benefits of strengths. And those little conversations, that they have with their peers, how they embrace new people to their teams and talk about their strengths, how they recognize and celebrate the strengths in others, how they're comfortable when people talk to them about the balcony of their strengths and also their basements, and use that for those, those performance and recognition discussions as well. Personal strength statements are also something very powerful. If we have each team member do that and then share that with each other, put that on a wall. Again, I love the idea of people taking that time to capture how they're going to use their strengths to be successful in their role and really serve a client. One of my clients, their slogan is peace of mind for our clients. They're an accountancy firm and they are very passionate about providing peace of mind in all the different areas of finance for their clients. And we had this conversation recently about just mapping this idea of my strengths to that slogan. What does that look like? And then capturing that and then sharing that with each other. And the beauty of that is people are starting to really bring to life their slogan and their strengths at the same time. What I'd like you to think about is, if you looked at all these little bits and pieces, if you actually said, okay, I actually want to do an assessment of where we're at, what would it look like to go and develop a mature strengths-based culture? Could I tick many of these off in our organization or the organization of one of my clients? Would we be at 10% of these things have done? Would we be at 100% and we need something new and different? What I'd like you to think about is, what's the percentage of that right now for your main client or for your company? Type it in. I want you to just, so if, are we at 50%? Are we just starting? And that might be a 10%. Or are we up to, hey, Murray, I'm at 100%. Give me something new and different. We've got a few coming into the chat, which is great. I want you to just reflect on that, because I think this is the opportunity to share another piece that I love. I want you to think about all the little things that we do that don't cost much money, that generally don't take a lot of time, can have such a huge impact in developing our strengths culture. Some of these things might cost a bit of money and time, but many of them are just about those bits and pieces. I've got someone in the chat that just said, just starting, and as a coach, I'm at 12%. Thanks for that honesty and that share. That's great. What I want you to think about is, okay, what would it look like with that client to get to 20%? What's a couple of things we could do? Teresa at 20%, fantastic. What I want you to consider is, again, where's the best bang for your buck? And when I say that, the time and energy to really help invigorate that strengths culture. So a key part with individuals is their attitudes towards the culture change, or their attitudes, what we want to think about is towards strengths. So what I honestly believe is that our attitude drives our behaviors and the performance we get in life and in our organizations. So if my attitude is, hey, strengths is just another one of these things that a coach wants me to do, or HR is saying is important, how engaged am I going to be in conversations about it? What behaviors am I going to have? How am I actually going to turn up for a training or a coaching session, or invite a new person to the team and talk to them about strengths? And then, of course, this will show up in our performance. Now, if we turn that on head, what if my attitude is, hey, strengths is wonderful, I love it, I'm getting so much out of it, I'm seeing the importance of it, I'm seeing the impact on my life within the organization and out. It's those conversations that we want to identify and leverage, because then we have this flow-on effect to the behaviors and the performance. So what I want you to think about is, we really want to influence those attitudes by engaging the leaders to drive the culture, and strengths champions. So I just want to think about, has anyone actually implemented a strengths champions group or team, or if they've thought about that with one of their clients or have implemented it? Would love for you to share in the chat about that. So a strengths champions group can look like a team of people from different parts of the organization and different levels that meet regularly, and they drive the strengths initiatives in the business. So that might be putting up posters, implementing small changes, getting contributions for a company newsletter. It might be attending team meetings and talking about strengths and some research. But there are a team of people who are meeting on a regular basis with support from their leaders to attend, because of course leaders are very important, and they are out there and they are promoting strengths. They may be strengths coaches, or they may not, and that's okay, but they are definitely advocates of strengths. How often would they meet? They might be meeting once a quarter or once a month. How I've done that myself is internally, when I was in part of an organization in an L&D role, is we defined our real purpose. That was the key thing to start with. What's our purpose as a strengths champions team? And we got very clear about, are we coaches, are we trainers, and what was the work that we would like to do. Of course, the key thing then was, okay, based on the work that we could do, which work aligns best with our strengths? So I have communication in my top 5. Happy to get out there talking to people, so that was part of my role. Someone else, again, might have a strength around ideation, and so, okay, let's leverage that. Let's help that collaboration. What are your ideas? And then the key part that needs to support that is a project plan. Not just what are we going to do, but how are we going to do it, when are we going to do it, and holding ourselves mutually accountable for that, and celebrating that when we get it out there. So I think internally we can do that, but also as coaches, think about how you could set that up with your clients and how you could actually have that as another paid piece of work as part of your partnership with your clients, that you're there not just coaching or running workshops, but also in that consulting space and supporting them. Or you might be a coach that attends those champions meetings, or you might be used in some other way, but certainly supporting your clients. I also think this is a great way to re-engage with one of your previous clients. So you might have rolled out some strengths workshops in the past year or two, maybe more. Go back to them and think about how this initiative can help them get that more value from strengths, but also you build that relationship and that spark again with them. Of course, with influencing attitudes, we need to know the why and the value, which I covered. Investing in one-on-one conversations. I'm going to cover this in a bit more in a couple of slides. Connect with the strengths. People need to actually go, hey, I connect with them. And as we know, we want people to claim their strengths. So again, that links to those targeted conversations and coaching sessions. So the reflective questions I want you to think about. What attitudes do our people have towards strengths? Is it just another thing, or is it something I'm really connected with? And I'd love to know your thoughts in the chat on that one. And also, how are we creating followers and supporting our early adopters? Really important. If we've got those people that are those strengths champions, they're the ones that go, hey, I want to get a strengths mug and I want to drink my coffee out of that every day. I want to take strengths home and have my partner do strengths in my family. If they're talking about these things, leverage that and go, okay, this person has this energy around strengths. They're an early adopter. Let's get them involved in strengths champion sort of initiatives. So the power of conversations. What I'd like you to think about and just reflect on is those conversations you've had about strengths, those life-changing conversations you've had with other people as a coach and within organizations, if you're an internal HR or OD professional or a manager that's in our chat today. Every conversation is an opportunity to influence our culture. Our culture changes one conversation at a time. So that conversation in the morning when you're walking through the hallway and you're talking to someone as you get your coffee, that's an opportunity to maybe mention strengths, ask them how they're going, how they're getting a chance to apply them. In a formal conversation around performance, around task assignment, around projects, there's another opportunity. As a coach, when you go to a site and you go to a business and you're going to meet with your client or run a workshop, do you ask the receptionist or someone else that you might see as you're walking through, hey, have you done your strengths? Do you know about strengths? Hey, do you know your top 5 strengths and how that can help you? That's what I'm here to do today. Those little conversations will influence the culture and help embed strengths into just the way we do it around here. So if there's one piece of gold I really want you to consider out of today's webinar, it's thinking about how our culture changes one conversation at a time. As I said at the start, I'm passionate about strengths. I use it with my clients and talk about it every day. My younger son says, oh, Dad, stop talking about strengths when I'm at home. And some of you on the webinar today may have heard that from your family as well. But to me, I know that every time I talk about my children's strengths or my partner, my wife's strengths, that we are acknowledging the uniqueness in each other and the beauty that they bring. And it is becoming just part of the way we also not just work, but also the way that we do things around at home as well. Now, I'd love to know your opinion on this. If anyone's got any thoughts around the benefits and they want to share in the chat today about top-down and bottom-up. What I've seen in cultural change is when we try and do things from the side, we can have some impact. So as coaches or as different HR or support services, whether that's in HR, continuous improvement, safety, or even finance, and we're trying to drive this sort of sideways improvement. What we can have is some impact, but I think really, as I said, leaders need to be on board. They need to be engaging everyone in the power of strengths in their conversations and the things that they do. Additionally, teams want to actually drive change, and there's a benefit from that as well. So what we can have at the same time is a top-down approach and a bottom-up. And what I guess is neither's right, neither's wrong, but what's important is let's strike a balance. Let's create a culture where both can happen. So in a top-down approach from leaders, we can have their language, their behaviors, their symbols, the things that they say and do, the way that they support developing the strengths culture. A symbol might be the way that they turn up to a meeting and talk about strengths. The way that they, as I said earlier, support someone going to a strengths coaching session or a workshop. I love when my clients embed strengths by having their top 5 strengths in their email signature. Something so simple. I just saw that the other day for one of my new clients. I went, woo, that is fantastic. They've just put their top 5 in the email signature and I love it. Donna has done that as well. Fantastic, love it. It's a simple little thing, but it sends such a strong message and it creates this opportunity to open up. All those little symbols are powerful. Or as one of my ex-colleagues used to say, I can't hear what you're saying because what you're doing is saying so much. So those visual symbols and cues are so powerful. From a team-led or a bottom-up approach, those strengths champions we talked about, those projects they can lead, the initiatives that they might want to take on board and the conversations. Of course, we want it to be part of their work, and of course, we want people still to do the work of their roles. But as a coach or a leader, how can we support our businesses and our people and our teams to, I guess, really live and breathe it through their passion if they've got that as well? So some quick wins. I've just mentioned a couple of these and I wanted to share them with you. 1 is meetings, 2, our physical environment, and 3, newsletters. So I'll just quickly touch on these. So meetings. It's one of those things that lots of companies I work with, people talk about how many meetings they have and back-to-back meetings and even getting double booked. I don't think meetings are going to go away anytime soon. I think they're going to keep on happening. I do think, however, our meetings could be a lot more productive. And one of the things I often say to my clients is meet regularly, meet frequently, and meet for a shorter period of time. But here's the opportunity we have. What if every meeting started with a reference to strengths, with people sharing one of their strengths, how they've lived it, how they've breathed it, how it's helped them be successful in the past week, maybe sharing the top 5. If we've got a new team member that's just joined, maybe at the weekly or the monthly meeting, they share their top 5 once they've completed, of course, and they talk about them. Other initiatives might be 2 people talking about their different perspectives of their strengths. As the culture develops and matures, another way to do this is to have people talk about the dynamics of where their 2 strengths intersect, maybe even 2 or 3. For building strong teams, it's another whole webinar we can talk about, but trust is the critical thing. And the best way to build trust is being vulnerable. So what I've loved is when I've seen teams and we've had members talk about, hey, I know I'm in my basement sometimes of some of my strengths and it looks like this. And when they do that, they're showing a bit of vulnerability and openness, and then that opens up for the rest of the team. And that's been so powerful. Again, it's part of that development of the culture. So on reflection, what I like you to think about is the power of meetings and how they provide this vehicle that currently exists to get the most out of embedding strengths and integrating into the culture. So I've just covered, I guess, the start of the meeting, but then there's the rest of the meeting. So the actual things we're discussing, how we're acknowledging each other, how we're assigning tasks maybe, or problem solving, or strategic planning, all of that, beautiful opportunities to integrate strengths. Now, we touched on some of the things earlier about the physical environment, and just a couple, I think, bang, quick wins, let's shift the culture, let's go, hey, strengths is part of the way we work. So email footers I've already mentioned, and I think that's a simple one and powerful. Second one is posters. What do the notice boards look like around an office or an area, which are encouraging people, A, to recognize the strengths in others, B, to apply their strengths, and C, just to, I guess, live them in every part of their life. Posters can turn into wallpaper. So if we have a million different posters out there and we don't think about which posters when we change them, we need to have a strategy that goes with that as well. I'd love for people to share in the chat today any other sort of quick wins that they've tried that have helped develop the strengths culture, whether it's in the physical environment or somewhere else. I'm actually, as I said earlier, drinking out of my strengths mug. A lot of my clients have a strengths mug, and I think it's a great initiative. People get to see them like that. I also love the strength certificates and plaques that people put on their desks. I love them as well. Any of those little reminders are beautiful. The last quick win, I think, is newsletters. A lot of companies and my clients still have regular newsletters that go out internal or external. So it might be something for employees or members of a group or a faith. How are we talking about strengths in that newsletter? Are we referencing it? Are we sharing a strength story? Are we giving people a chance to maybe do a profile of an employee? Here's my top 5 strengths, and this is what I love about them. What I've seen a couple of times is people who have shared strength stories which are outside of work, and it's just been so powerful. And people talking about how their strengths have helped them be successful in another part of their life. Might be a sporting area, it might be a relationship, or even just an interaction with one of their children. And again, it's just showing that strengths is part of the way we work around here. Again, what I want you to think about is the external newsletter, that external face that clients and companies, as we think about how we are promoting our strengths culture to our customers, to our clients. For example, if we're sending out a newsletter, we could talk about our strengths-based initiatives, our programs, and our strengths as helping us as an organization. If we have our own suppliers and contractors, what are the conversations with them like? And when we send the newsletter, so that we actually are looking at strengths across the whole supply chain. For those coaches on board, if you've got a really strong relationship with one of your clients, what I want you to think about is, again, your responsibility strength about how you could serve that client. Have a conversation with your key contact about who are their customers, who are their suppliers that they have a strong relationship with, and can you sit down and talk to them about strengths and the benefits that your client has seen and how you'd love to help the other organizations in their supply chain. Really sort of start to embrace strengths as well. One I've thrown in today, a little bit of extra one, I want you to think about, and this is something I've done with a couple of clients, and I think it can be an additional workshop or initiative beyond strengths teamwork or strengths-based leadership or strengths coaching. And the piece that I'm thinking about, and I've done with a few clients that's been actually, I'd like to think quite successful, and that is, what's our work, what are our company values, and where's the intersection with strengths? Because I think this is where some real alignment can happen. So if we've got a company set of values, we've got this work we need to do, and then we've got people's strengths. How does that magically align, and how can that help us be as successful as possible? So I'd like you to think about that, what that could look like with the clients that you work with, as a sort of mapping exercise, or the teams that you have within your organization. Because I think once you start to unpack that, it's also going to not just bring strengths alive, but really bring the company values alive as well. Now, what I want to talk to you about additionally, and to, I guess, wrap up some of the things that we've covered, is the Strengths Culture Toolkit. I'm so passionate about people just not attending training or coaching and it being a tick in the box, just another thing, that it's something that changes their life, that helps in your organizations improve, that individuals are engaged in their roles and they are getting the chance to do what they do best every day. So how do we do that? So what I came up with was a collection of tools and resources to help develop a strengths-based culture. Now, you might be thinking, how does this help me as a coach or me as a manager? And I'll cover that, and just I want to show you a couple of samples of the resources as well. So for HR, OD professionals, how does it help me? It's a process to build a strengths culture. There's tools and ideas to engage leaders and those internal champions, ways to drive the cultural change in the organization. You can use it to measure the development of strengths culture. So there's some assessment tools in there as well. Make developing the strengths culture easier, and make it easier and less stressful to implement the change. I know as a HR professional and as managers, we have a lot of work to do. And sometimes strengths can be like another thing. So the aim is for these resources to make it even easier to do. Now, for coaches, what I'd like you to think about, how does it help me? It actually helps you develop a strengths-based culture with your clients. So it's not just, as I said, a tick in the box of a team workshop or some coaching, but really develop that culture. Secondly, it actually helps you partner with the leaders and the change agents in your clients. Gives you a way to have those conversations, to answer those questions of what's next, how do I do this? Giving you those resources, but also from a coaching perspective, ongoing work with them when you're helping them develop. Helps you tailor information to meet their clients in their strengths journey. You might have a brand new client that's just starting strengths and they go, hey, we want to do strengths in this one team and we want to develop that. Can we have some resources to do that? You might have a whole organization goes, let's go, let's map that out. What's the plan? So there's a project plan template in the toolkit. You might have a client you've worked with for 3 years ago, and you haven't seen them. Here's a way to re-engage with them, for you to actually contact them again and go, hey, remember that strengths thing? Let's get some more out of that. Here's some tools to help you do that. Where are you up to? So what does the toolkit contain? Currently we have in there 8 templates, a couple of facilitator guides which cover a range of activities. It has guidelines, it has posters and email templates. So I want to show you a few samples of what they look like. If you have any questions on these as they come up on the screen, please let me know and I'll get back to you straight away. I'll answer those in the chat as well. So what they look like, let's have a look. So for an email templates, there's a series of those for once someone completes their strengths assessment in a workshop or a coaching session that you can send out to help them reflect on their strengths, keep applying them, and develop that strengths approach in the work that they do. There's a strengths conversation guide. So having what I like to think about as those positive feedback conversations, but also the constructive feedback conversations where people might be in their basements. So there's a guide around that with examples of different ones and a template which you can fill out because feedback, I know, can be quite difficult, but that template helps managers have that tough conversation by getting ready beforehand. There's also a range of strengths activities, whether that's a post-it note activity, meetings, songs, a whole range of things. So there's a range of strengths activities with the materials needed and then the actual guide to deliver that. Some of the posters in the toolkit include a couple on the screen at the moment that you can see. What strengths have I appreciated today? What perspectives do my strengths bring? Whose strengths can help us find a way forward? And these posters are very simple and have questions because questions engage. And the aim is for once people see that will just, again, jog their memory and promote that strengths culture. Some of the templates available in the toolkit. There's a strengths development plan that actually goes through the stages for someone understands their development of strengths from not just the workshop, but those before and after conversations and the development process. There's, as I said, a project plan which covers all of the different areas around that culture of leadership, individual, environment and systems, and goes through the dates, the plan, the quarters, the different initiatives, the owners, and a way to actually map that out. So once you work with a client, you can go, okay, now let's plan that out. What does that look like? Who's doing what? Who can we assign tasks to? Who can we map tasks to based on strengths? A whole range of things. And there's also something that I've developed, which is a strengths culture development assessment guide. So going through from elementary, just starting up to benchmark, there's a range of, I guess, ways to look at that and to help determine where we are as a team or an organization. And then a assessment guide where you fill that in. And then what actions can we take to help us move to the next level? Other tools in the toolkit, in the templates, include a leadership guide for leaders to think about their leadership strengths plan, for individuals around their individual strengths plan and application, strengths walls, templates, a whole range of things. So the Strengths Culture Toolkit, in a nutshell, is a collection of resources to help develop a strengths-based culture, whether you're a coach or you're an internal change agent as a manager, HR, OD professional. What is available right now is immediate access to all the resources. They're all currently available in the members area. You also have access to a special Strengths Culture Toolkit Facebook group where there'll be additional sharing and, I guess, coaching going along to support people as they develop their strengths culture. For every Strengths Culture Toolkit, there's a one-on-one coaching call from me or another strengths-based accredited coach to help you get the most from the toolkit. As I said, I'm passionate not just about strengths but culture change, and in these coaching calls I will share with you strategies, ways that I've engaged with clients, the way that I've built my business, but also the ways that I have delivered and developed and led culture change in my life as a manager as well. It's a powerful coaching call for an hour and a half to help you really get the most from the toolkit, but also happy to be sharing as much as I can to help you in your journey. You also get lifetime access to the toolkit, not just the current resources, but future resources as they get released. So I'm currently working on some other online assessment tools around the culture, more posters, more templates, more activity facilitation guides. They'll just keep on getting released every quarter, and as they do, you'll get a notification and have access to them straight away. The special webinar investment for the strengths-based culture right now is only $750, and that's 25% less than the launch price. When you go to strengthsculturetoolkit.com, which is the web address, and you enter in the code Culture Webinar, you'll be able to purchase all those resources and access to the coaching call for only $750. So as I said, the web address is www.strengthsculturetoolkit.com to have a look there. So I want to thank you so much for all your time and getting the chance to share with you my thoughts on building a strengths-based culture. If anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat right now and I'm happy to answer them straight away. However, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share and looking forward to hearing from everyone as they develop a strengths-based culture and everyone gets a chance to be the best that they can every day. Again, everyone, thank you so much. That's the end of the webinar today, and I hope you get a lot out of it. So please go forward and please wish you all the best in your strengths-based journey.